Welcome back, everyone, to Course 16 in the massive open online course for mission transition. In Course 16, we're going to talk about negotiating and finalizing your job offer. Our objectives are to negotiate and finalize that offer, enabling you to successfully resolve gaps between what the employer offers and what you actually need. Our second objective is to understand what veteran support networks exist at your prospective employer, and thus help you identify points of contact that are going to help you successfully assimilate into your new organization. This course refers to Chapter 9 within Mission Transition. Please pick it up. And as always, references on my website, which you'll find at the website listed below. Check out the resources section. A full 25,000 words are all there for free for you to peruse and download. You'll find me on various social media platforms, and as always, it's helpful to take this course with a fellow veteran, a peer, someone that's successfully been through this process before. We're moving on here. You see we're approaching the end of the process. Here we're talking about closing the deal, and negotiation is a key part of that. So let's talk about a definition. Negotiation is the interactive process of discussions with the goal of influencing the behavior of others to reach a mutually satisfactory agreement. I want you to focus on those last few words. The intent here is that the outcome of this negotiation be win-win, not win-lose, lose-win, or lose-lose. That results in both parties losing something through its outcome and thus lacking the basis for an enduring relationship. We want the outcome of this to be an enduring relationship. Relationships are key in the business world. Now, friends, recognize this is likely a new skill for you. It's going to require planning and practice. When's the last time you negotiated for anything in the military, whether it be a promotion or a raise or what have you? Most times those things are, for the most part of the standard stepping stones. Job offers are invitations to negotiate. And negotiation is not something to be avoided. It's something to engage in and take whatever offer you're giving as a starting point. It's not the ending point. There's conversation that should ensue, and that takes the form of a negotiation. Frankly, it's also the only time in the job search where you have leverage over the employer. Think about it. The ball is in your court. So please take advantage of this one opportunity you have to try to leverage something incremental to what's been offered that you may need. And consider this: every incremental dollar, whether that's in form of salary or other portions of your compensation package that you can secure, accrues to you as an annuity, meaning that it will continue to remain year on year on year. Think about it. When was the last time that your salary or benefit went down? Very rare that happens, and it really establishes a base from which things continue to improve year over year in the form of raises or bonuses or additional benefits. And then finally, an initial offer of employment is rarely final. Okay, so again, take advantage of these things. Let's talk about a principled negotiation method. We talked earlier about this being win-win, and here's the way to do that, the method or the approach. And by the way, this comes directly from Fisher and Urey's book noted at the bottom there, Getting to Yes. If you want to read a book about this approach that many leading organizations take to train their folks in this skill set to ensure a win-win approach in lasting relationships, it's a good one to pick up. Anyway, their method has 4 steps. The first focuses on people. Separate the people from the problem. And the point here is to put yourself in the shoes of the other people. And we'll call out an example here. Let's say you're a retiree coming out. An employer may perceive you to be an expensive hire coming out of the service. You've been flying fairly high in terms of the amount of salary you've been taking. Step 2 in the method is interest. Focus on interest, not positions. An employee's initial job offer is their going in position, as we mentioned, based on issues and underlying interest at play at that organization. Continuing with our example, an organizational issue may well be the pay band limits that they have at various levels. And so they may, frankly, be prevented from offering you a salary that you may desire coming out of the military. And one of their interests is typically in saving costs and limiting spending on labor. The third step in the method is options. Invent multiple options for looking for mutual gains before deciding what to do. Again, continuing our example here, we could potentially come up with an example that, say, cuts back on benefits. We're getting any number of benefits from the military. It could be an option that we rely on those benefits, which are pre-programmed, so that the employer doesn't need to cover or pay for them. That may address their need to save costs and help us with the salary that we may be seeking. And then the last step here in the method is criteria. Insist that the result be based on some objective standard. And then again, following through with our example, the cost of the benefit that we're discussing or the market rate salary figure would be our objective standards. So that's the basic approach, but we may not always come to an agreement. And so let's talk about BATNAs. BATNA is an acronym, stands for Best Alternative to a Negotiated Agreement. It is, in essence, your walkaway point. The more and better BATNAs you have, the greater negotiating leverage you have. So think about it. How would you feel negotiating for a higher salary if you had two other job offers with higher salaries already in your hip pocket? Conversely, how would you feel if you had no other offers? All right, here's the point. Options beget power. And so try to go into any negotiation with some options in mind. Here's how you go about creating these BATNAs. All right, so compile a list of actions you might take if no agreement's reached. Convert the more promising ideas into alternatives and select the alternatives that seem best. Again, I reference Fisher and Urey's book, Getting to Yes, a great resource. And so before going into any negotiation, there's a worksheet that I ask you to complete, and here are its components. All right, start out, and you want to approach this and document both your point of view as well as the other party's point of view. First item here is goals. What's your goal? What's the other party's goal, and how can we make that a shared goal? Power. Coming into the discussion, who has the power? It tends to be the organization, but it could be the other way around. Sources of power could include knowledge, confidence, commitment, aspiration, etc. Issues and interests. What are the key issues and interests to be discussed? What are the other parties' issues and interests? Is there any commonality there? Are there any issues where agreement might be difficult? And if so, what do we do about those? Possible options, including trade-offs. What will we be willing to give up to get what we want? What would the organization be willing to give up to get what they want? Objective criteria. How will we measure success? Again, we just talked about some of these things on the last slide. How will the other party measure success? And strategy. What's the logic or rationale we're going to use to influence the other party to accept our solution? And what logic or rationale do we expect the other party to use to help influence us to accept their solution? Based on that strategy, tactics. What persuasion principles will we use to influence the other party? What principles will we expect the other party to use to influence us, and how would we counter them? What's our going in position, our initial position, based on everything above? And then based on what we know, how would we expect the other organization to state their position, and how would we counter it? And then lastly, information. What else do we need to know or verify before we meet with the other party? You know, we spent a lot of time up to now talking about a lot of preparation rehearsal, and this is no exception. What information do we expect the other party to attempt to extract from us? What information will we not divulge and give up? And so based on the answers to that question, would strongly encourage you to complete this planning worksheet. All of those items we just discussed, listing out our position versus the other party's position. Doing this exercise is going to help you identify how to approach the discussion at a very tactical level. And then once you've done that, you want to rehearse before you engage. And rehearsing your approach, please do it with a civilian knowledgeable, at a minimum, about the industry, and optimally knowledgeable about the organization itself. Practice responding to various scenarios or contingencies you expect to come up with in engaging the employer. The more you practice, the more confident you're going to be. And how you structure the conversation with the other party will largely be based on that preparation. And then here's kind of how you would structure it. All right. Always, you're going to sandwich this message with an attitude of gratitude. So start with thanks. They've given you an offer. They've given you a lifeline to a new world. Be thankful and open with that. That is an entree to really the guts of the conversation, what you want to dig into and begin discussing to negotiate to get what you need. So act on the conclusions you've drawn from the previous slide and the planning worksheet exercise. And then again, close that sandwich, if you will, with the attitude of gratitude, thanking them for this opportunity that they've extended to you, and put forth some eagerness, some interest about the organization and the role, and about getting started work and adding value to the organization. Two ways of doing that. If you've concluded enough through the discussion and have been able to successfully resolve the items that you needed, you could go ahead and accept it on the spot. Or you could commit to providing a final decision by a specific date. I would strongly encourage that to be very near term. I'd peg it at 48 to 72 hours. Point is, don't leave the employer hanging here. Time is money in the real world, and you don't want to gobble up a lot of time. So commit to a time frame within which you're going to provide an answer and make sure that they're okay with it. So moving on from conducting your negotiation, let's assume you've done that completely and resolved it one way or another. You've either accepted the role or have declined it, but for now, let's assume that you've accepted it. The moment you've done so, and even preferably before you've done so, and perhaps considering this as part of your decision-making criteria, is identifying veteran support networks at the organization to whom they have extended an offer to you. So landing the job, frankly, is only the start of your transition. And this transition is going to take, frankly, years to fully adjust to life in the real world. How you shorten that time frame is to work through your tribe, all right, your peers, and how you do that. Your tribe, your peers, exists in the form of veteran peers and other support mechanisms at the organization who has extended you this role. So ask about them through the interviewing process, the negotiation process, and not only that they exist, but try to get at how active they are. Ask if the organization has formal transition support and retention practices to support you, or support of the Guard and Reserve. How actively are they involved in supporting veteran-related causes? Do they celebrate veteran-related holidays, Veterans Day, Memorial Day, et cetera? And as you come through your what would hopefully be multiple offers from various employers, I want to revisit a prioritization matrix we considered earlier in the MOOC when we looked at various career fields. Here we're going to leverage the identical approach, the matrix, but this time focusing on various employers. And so here's how you would approach this. And by the way, you can download the free template at the website noted at the bottom of the slide here. Much as we did before when we were focusing on career fields, here we're going to make a list of criteria, but in this instance, for the various employer options we may have at play. And much as we did then, rate these criteria on a 1 to 5 scale, 5 being the most important. List your employer options, the offers you currently have on the table, and score them against those criteria using a 1, 3, 9 fit, 9 being a best fit, with input from your family, please. And then a simple cross multiplication, which is part of the spreadsheet that you'll download, helps produce an emotionless direction for you. Sometimes this is a very emotional part of the process, and not that this prioritization matrix has to be the way and find the solution or outcome to point you in which employer you want to end up working for, but take it as one of many factors as a way to help resolve your conundrum should you have multiple offers at play. And so, closing the deal, just some tactics about doing so. If you decide to accept the role, call the individual, if you don't accept it on the spot, that offered you the role, and accept it with enthusiasm. You want to be as engaged as possible. This is the outset of a long-standing career, a long-standing relationship with these folks. So make it a good one. Reaffirm your passion for the role and a desire to get started. Let that energy come through, that enthusiasm. Thank them again for the offer. I foot stomp this again one more time. Thank you notes, my friends. Thank you notes. Confirm your start date and any other tactical details you need to get settled in order to begin working there. And there we go. Draft a final thank you note. If you end up declining the role for whatever reason, still call the individual that offered you the position, thank them for the offer. Okay. We talked about enduring relationships. Even if you're declining a role, you want to have an enduring relationship. You never know what could lie ahead for you in the future. State the reasons for why you decline the role. Keep it upbeat. Wish them well, and perhaps even provide a referral. Hey, I'm sorry, all said, this didn't work for me, but you might consider talking to person ABC. That would really help them out. Leave the discussion on a high note. And again, send a personal thank you note, thanking them for their consideration and engagement. They spent a lot of time, a lot of effort trying to sell you on their organization and the role. For whatever reason, you've decided to decline it, but thank them for that investment in you. And at the end of the day, never burn bridges. We want to build enduring relationships in the business world. We talked about this during the courses where we discussed networking. These are all potential networking relationships targets. By this point, you may even consider some of these people to be friendlies. Never burn bridges. So here's your homework, friends. Please complete the negotiation planning worksheet ahead of any negotiation you might conduct. Rehearse this approach with a civilian, preferably someone that understands the industry, even better, someone that understands the organization and the people with whom you're engaging in the organization. Utilize the prioritization matrix to aid in your decision-making, assuming you have multiple offers on the table. And once again, friends, send thank you notes. An attitude of gratitude will set you up for success. Please check out Chapter 9 Emission Transition. Lots of additional background here on principled negotiation methods, additional detail on successful negotiation tactics, vetting the viability of veteran support groups, perspective from folks that have successfully negotiated and gone through this part of the process. Lots of additional details, especially for those that are more tenured among us, and lots of additional resources called out that's going to support your transition. Some words to the wise to wrap things up here. Research salary ranges. Again, unlike the military, these things aren't publicly available. So understand what the potential opportunities are for both current and follow-on roles. Where you start does not determine where you're going to end. So understand what the future potentially holds. Understand compensation expectations. We discussed this in our last course. What's included in the full package and what is not. As we should now know, this is very different from what you experienced in the military. Don't be afraid to ask if you need a specific benefit. Doesn't matter what the employers put forward in their compensation package. If you need something, the negotiation is the opportunity to put that on the table. Don't assume that it's going to be offered if you were eligible for it. Understand what support networks exist at your target employer. What does your tribe look like at this new organization, and how active are they, and how do you get plugged into these folks? Successful negotiations follow a win-win approach. Nobody should lose, and you should approach these things with considering what their goals and issues are. Always take the high road. Practice this, friends. Again, this is a new skill for you, and you can't go into it without having rehearsed and practice with someone that understands it. And as always, just to foot stomp this one more time, do not burn bridges. Negotiation is a win-win intended to facilitate enduring, successful relationships in the business world. And as always, write thank you notes, maintain that attitude of gratitude throughout. As always, we have additional resources, many here. Again, this is a new skill set for you, so please take advantage of these. Note that we have a resource here for career military professionals, something to keep in mind if you have a little more tenure. Here's how you contact me should you have additional questions about this topic. And let's end here with a video about some of my own personal issues around finances and how those were impacted during transition. Here we go.
You know, it's a silly story, but the upshot is around finances coming out. You know, for perhaps the first time in your life, you may be considering a scenario where you don't have a consistent revenue stream. I understand that folks face that. Again, this is where prior planning can help, whether it's you and your spouse trading things off if you do go back to school to enable some form of revenue stream. My own personal situation was such that my wife was in medical school at the time and had not medical school, residency, and had a very meager salary, but enough to sustain us, living in an apartment while I was going to graduate school. But anyway, it forced us at that point in time to have a budget, maintain the budget, and stay within the budget. And that wasn't a skill set always necessarily taught to us in the military. The one snippet I'll just play back as part of that was, after our Sunday church services, we'd like to get a donut, so we go down to the bakery. But again, given the meagerness of our budget at the point in time, there were the fresh donuts and there were the day-old donuts. Day-old donuts were, easily half off or more. Well, budget being the budget, we had to take advantage of day-old donuts. And having come from the military, we referred to them as DODs, using our 3-letter acronym. Anyway, that's one snapshot as to how you need to adjust your view on your budget and perhaps your spending habits coming out until you, accrue those additional skill sets or find your new normal in a civilian organization, depending on what you and your spouse are doing and how you work that out.
All right, friends, there you have it. Good luck with your negotiation skills, and we'll look forward to seeing you back next time. Take care.